guys, my name is Daniel Johnson, and I'm the founder of We Scale Startups. Today, I'm going to be talking about growth marketing and the 5 things that every startup needs in order to scale. I'm really excited to be presenting this today, and actually, this is the culmination of a lot of work over many years. And it's actually a TLDR version of a much longer hour-long presentation that walks you through the steps to go from I've got an idea, how do I actually create marketing activities to drive customers to my business. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. So hi, I'm Dan. I run We Scale Startups. We specialize in early stage tech startups, specifically in app, SaaS, e-commerce, and crypto. Outside of that, I also work with Google's Accelerator program, Launchpad, and do a bunch of other things. This picture's a bit old. I now have a beard. Some of my fun claims to fame are over £60 million generated in revenue for various clients. We have more than 50% of all internet users have seen our work by unique impressions. And I've been very fortunate to speak at a bunch of prestigious organizations, including Cambridge, Oxford, Google, and many, many more. And my favorite one is that I've been able to mentor or work with more than 100 startups in a variety of different countries. And I really love that one. And that's probably the one that I've generated the most amount of learnings from. So I hope you're excited because I am. Without further ado, I want to share with you some startups that I feel have used growth marketing in the most effective method. So here we can find Slack. Now, Slack is pretty ubiquitous amongst startups, but back in the day, it really wasn't. And in fact, it took a lot of people, took people a lot of encouragement in order to adopt it. Another company that we can, okay. So growth marketing sounds like this really exciting concept that is very technical and very complicated, but it really doesn't need to be. The problem is that most people overcomplicate it. The way that I like to see it is growth marketing is a process of experimentation to test ideas and see what works. So with startups compared to corporates, you've got a million different ideas that you want to run. You've got absolutely no budget and you need to do everything yesterday. Now, you're going to burn through all the budget if you run through if you just launch campaigns. So what I recommend is working to test out your ideas to validate or invalidate your marketing campaigns. And then that way you build up a body of knowledge at a reduced price to say, okay, cool, this works, this doesn't. And it allows you to scale and build up data moving forwards. So, how does growth marketing work? It's super simple. The first stage is we want to grow fast. I talk about this in my longer presentation, but essentially, like Steve Blank says, the goal of a startup is to find a effective business model, or as Paul Graham believes, it's a company designed to grow fast. So in order to grow fast, we develop a bunch of hypotheses based off what is true or what we believe to be true. And it's really important that we actually apply these in the real world because, we might believe, for example, that Facebook is going to drive us a cost per acquisition at under $10. We don't know if that's true yet. So the goal is to develop a bunch of these hypotheses, test them out very rapidly with very fixed hypothesis plans, and then to develop this comprehensive body of knowledge that we can then use to understand what channels work best, what audience works best, what copy and creative works best. So by performing these tests, we're able to go to step number 4 here, which is more data, which then results in more insights and better decision-making capacity because we use that data to make better decisions and ultimately faster growth. So this is a cycle, and that is the very core fundamentals of modern day growth marketing. So here are 5 things that a lot of customers may need to do. So I'm not saying that everyone needs this, and not everyone needs it in the form that I'm about to present it. However, I do recommend that pretty much every startup does have one of these 5 at some point. So, customer research. Customer research is the key to any successful company. Now, everyone says they're doing it, but very few people do it properly. Most people develop a customer persona that they think is really cool, and then they stick it in their drawer. And that customer persona has a bunch of extraneous detail that isn't very relevant and no one is ever going to pay attention to. And what I recommend here is that you actually think about what are the main things that are going to influence this person's decision to buy my product or service. And then to ensure that information is available on the profile itself. Because there's a lot of information that on a lot of these customer personas that just isn't relevant or interesting or accurate. So what you need to do is focus on the key things that are important, the factors that influence whether or not they're going to buy your product. And also remember that this is a living, breathing document. So by that I mean you develop it at the beginning and then you continue to iterate on it over time. As you develop more data, as you learn more about your customers, you can make it more accurate, more personalized, and more based off real data. Um, One of the best companies that I've ever seen was a Shopify plugin that actually had a massive customer persona on the two-story wall next to all the offices. So I would really try and utilize it as much as possible wherever you can. There's a whole bunch of places that you can also perform a bunch of customer research. So there's quantifiable and qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is any information that you can track using numbers essentially, and qualitative is information that is more subjective and based off feel or personality. What I like to do, and the best thing that I do, is first read the Mum Test, which is one of the best books on customer research that you can ever read. And then what I ideally like to do is meet people in person. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because you often discover things that you may not through any other means. So I used to work at a company called ShopRocket, which is an awesome company. Um, and I really had a great time. This was years ago, and the business has now changed a bit. So I remember going for a beer with a customer and asking them, what is it? Or after a bunch of series of questions, I asked them, how would you describe our product to your best friend who's also a customer? And he said, a shop in one line of code. And I thought that was super cool because at the time our focus was on how fast our JavaScript executed. But what we later realized is that actually our customers didn't care about how fast the JavaScript executed. They only cared about how easy it was to sell stuff immediately. And I think that's really important. And that's one of the reasons why I always encourage people to speak to their customer as closely as possible. And that actually ties me into my next thing. So here is a framework that I use with most of my clients, and it's called a strategic messaging map. It's by this chap here, and here's a medium. I'd highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. And it comes with a super comprehensive essay that talks about why you should use this value proposition framework. So this is predominantly optimized towards SaaS-based businesses, but you can also customize it for yours. And actually, coming into the field, I always came in from numbers. And what I realized is that actually you need to be able to articulate the value proposition in a way that makes sense to your customers. It's so important, and it affects every single channel that you do. Most founders are really good at going to a networking event and talking about the business, but very few of them are particularly good at writing them down. Once you've written it down, I would then recommend you test it amongst your customers to make sure that the words are right. You always want to maintain a balance between carefully articulating yourself based off your brand and also adjusting how you describe yourself based off what your customers or how your customers talk about you. And I would highly recommend this document if you have not already. The next is the Jobs to be Done framework. So Jobs to be Done is one of my absolute all-time frameworks, and it essentially looks at what are the core fundamental goals that a person is trying to achieve by using your product or service. A great example of this is fragrance ads. When you're on the beach, when you're seeing these fragrance or cologne ads, they very rarely detail the specific chemical composition of the fragrance and why that is beneficial. They show you emotion, they show you feeling, they show you something that an environment that you aspire to be in. And that's really what they're selling. They're not selling that. They're selling it so you can, when I spray my cologne, that I feel more confident, that I feel more attractive, that people respect me more. And that's essentially what people are looking for in our day-to-day products. Our product features might be one thing, but actually the reason that someone is purchasing our product is often very different. Um, a common example is even B2B enterprise SaaS, which is very commonly boring. But you're selling to a person, and that person is trying to do their job more effectively. Whether that's they want to use your software to do their job more effectively, to get more money so that they can retire early and spend time with their kids. That's really what someone's trying to achieve. And I think it's really important that we apply this to all our businesses and we think to ourselves, what is the goal of our customer? What do they really want to achieve and how can we help them do that? Because by understanding that, we're more able to connect with them and personalize the messages that we have for them. I love this quote by Theodore Levitt, who I believe was an academic. People don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want to buy a quarter-inch hole, which I think perfectly articulates what I was trying to say there. So if you don't have it already, here is the growth plan. This very daunting document is essentially an experimentation plan that allows you to test your ideas out very rapidly, very quickly. But don't worry, it's not as scary as it looks. I'm going to walk you through it really quickly, and you can use whatever you want out of this. You don't have to use all of it. And if you're interested, you can also visit my other video, which is called What the Hell is Growth, to learn how you can actionably use this. So first we start at the far left here, which is the funnel. So we use something called Pirate Metrics, which is a way to figure out where a user is between going from unaware of your brand to becoming a super active, excited user. So the stages are awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, referral. Awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, and referral. And I would encourage you to take a Google for that. It's called Pirate Metrics. Big fan of it. Next, we've got the channel. So what is the specific ad channel that we're trying to target our users with? So here, PPC stands for pay-per-click. Other is external. And then we have others here. So just think about what kind of channel that you're trying to work with. For name, I like to have a very clear, specific name. In fact, I like to fill out this document in such a way that someone else could read it and understand exactly what we're trying to achieve. So the name is fairly simple. Next, we have the description. So the description here is designed to be provide a bit of context and to ensure that, again, anyone can understand this if they're looking at it. Some tasks require subtasks, but they're not always required. Then you have goals. So essentially, what are you trying to achieve with this experiment? For most of these were based off a company that I used to work with called EQ. And then next we have impact, confidence, and ease. But don't worry if this daunts you either. So the way that this works is we insert a number out of 0 to 4, 0 being the lowest, 4 being the highest, and we combine them and then rank them based off whatever the highest impact, confidence, and ease is. This ensures that we're focusing on the experiments with the highest likelihood of success first, and then we continually update these and update the numbers. Next, we have RSP, which I'll describe in a second, and then budget. So what percentage of the total budget does this experiment is this experiment assigned for? Cool. I appreciate that's an absolute crash course, a lot of information there, but I hope you find this useful. Really quickly, we're going to look at repeatable, scalable, and predictable, which is what RSP stands for. So whenever we're looking at an activity, we want it to ideally be repeatable, scalable, and predictable. This means we can say with a degree of confidence that if we put in a specific input, it will proportionally come out with a desired output. So for example, if we put in £1,000 or $1,000 for our company, we might get, say, 1,000 app installs or something like that. Obviously, take these numbers with a pinch of salt. And then by being scalable, we can say, okay, if we can acquire a user for $1, and we put in $1 million, we should be able to acquire those users for the same price. So it's scalable and predictable. Here you go. Repeatable can be done again and again. Scalable input in equals proportional out, and predictable. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk. I appreciate there was a lot of information here, and I hope you find this useful in growing your own startup. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at WeScale Startups or on social media, and have a fantastic day. Cheers. Bye.